What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of The Spread, NESN's Football Picks podcast. This is a Halloween edition following up from our previous Halloween edition. So just a lot of Halloween festivities going on in the NESN offices over the past couple of weeks. I'm Ricky Doyle, joined, as always, by Mike Cole. This feels a little awkward, me being the one to introduce us into the show, quarterback this offense, but we got a little bit of a switch up in terms of our locales today. You are working remotely. I am here in the studio. So figured I'd take the reins, but this is a team effort as always, Mike. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I guess this is a road game for me, but at home, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's
like the Jets Giants at the Meadowlands.
Yeah, exactly.
Just got to kind of make heads or tails of it.
Yeah, which, I mean, we can get into that at some point too. Last week was a disaster for me on the show, at least. But yeah, I had to be home today. The house is falling apart. People are sick as can be. We are going through it over here.
Is this in any way related to the mice infestation issue that you seemed to be dealing with last week? That only got worse after we went off the air.
Yeah. So I got a call from my wife after we spoke last week. We had a guy come over who basically was like, "This job is too big for me. You need to call."
That you never want to hear that.
No, he's like, you need to call a company that specializes in I don't even really know exactly. And then in the midst of that, I had to go. I've been clearing brush out front. Our shrubbery has grown too big to the house, so I've been clearing that out. Just getting pricked and poked in every imaginable direction by I got birds flying at me from all different directions. So I've been cleaning that up. And then in the midst of all this, the heat, it's cold out. So we turned the heat on. The heat kicked on the other day, and I can just hear rushing water in the walls. And the internet says it's not a big deal. So I am in the midst of trying to get somebody over here to take a look at that. I went down the stairs to check on it myself, like I was going to do anything. Clearly it was not. But in doing that, I opened up the door to where the furnace is, and there's holes in the insulation, obviously from mice. It looks like the only thing I could say is like the equivalent to it's like if these mice use this room as like a porta potty at like Country Fest at Gillette.
Yeah.
There's just
I know
it's
exactly
everywhere.
What you mean.
Yeah, it is. It's everywhere. So I'm not sure if I have to clean that up before the guy comes to look at the furnace. It's just we're dealing with it everywhere. I think my wife might be dead. It's just there's a lot going on over here. We're dealing with a new dog. I got smoked in the face by a bird the other night. That's another story if you want to get into that. I opened the door.
A proper identification on what bird this was? Because I mean, there was a pertinent topic of conversation last week at the Battle of the Birds. We got another one this week. You look ahead to Ravens Seahawks, which I'm sure we'll get into, but we've been all over the bird beat, really.
Maybe it's a sign. Yeah, I don't know. We have a wreath, like a Halloween fall wreath on the front door, and the birds have been using it as a nest. So I went to take the dog out last night, open up the door. The bird is still in the wreath, and then it came flying out.
You can start your own little animal kingdom over there, and
hit me in the side of the face. I'm not having fun. Not having fun right now. So I'm looking forward to spending the next 30 to 40 minutes talking about football with you. I kind of just hijacked the entire top of the show, but I'm going through it. I want to really make it make it all out in the
open. We will do that. We will make picks at some point. We will discuss football. That is the name of the game here. But also just, like I said at the beginning, we did our Halloween festivities last week, which in hindsight, now that we're, in different locations, it's good that we were able to have our festivities last week. Otherwise, we might have to push it to the next week. So this is kind of this is the awkward. We're recording this on Halloween Day, by the way. I should note that. Should also note that we're recording this just prior to the NFL trade deadline. So who the hell knows what's going to happen over the course of, the 30 minutes, 45 minutes we're in here. But yeah, no, it was good that we were able to come together and dress up and have a ball.
Yeah, I mean, I could have dressed up today though as like Jack Hanna, perhaps.
True.
Got the animal world of adventure over here. And as I get talking, it's been dead silent all day, and now my goddamn neighbor is out with his backpack leaf blower.
Well, I mean, maybe Al Borland should put the goggles back on and get back out there.
I mean, it's falling like crazy. I don't even know what he's doing. So if there's background noise, there's that. So I apologize. I have screwed up a lot of days for a lot of people already today, and I feel bad for that. So
it's
the least I could do is put some good picks out this week.
Well, we'll certainly try. Any major takeaways from week 8 you want to get into before we start looking ahead here and getting into week 9? Week 9, by the way,
awesome,
pretty good slate. Really, from start to finish, starting with the
balanced.
The Germany game at 9:30 is awesome, which we'll get into. And then you got at least one good game on at all times, which is refreshing.
I can even be talking to the Thursday night game. Like Steelers Titans as a Thursday night game is just bad enough that it might be good.
Yep. I mean, especially with the Will Levis factor now, like just just seeing what he's all about is interesting in and of itself.
Sure.
Yeah. In the Monday night, even like Chargers Jets is kind of whatever, but I could also sink my teeth into it if there's not a whole lot going on Monday night. So, yeah, all out.
No, so going back to last week, I mean, for our weekly picks on NESNbets.com, I went 7-6-3. You went 5-7-3. So there's 3 pushes in there. I feel really just annoyed at how some things went down last week. I mean, what did the Giants? They have like -4 passing yards in the second half, or something insane. And the Jets could only muster a push. This tells you how bad my picks on the show went last week, as I took the over in that Chiefs Broncos game, and then like a day after that, forecasts come out that it's going to be like 30 degrees and there's like a chance of like a foot of snow in Kansas City. It didn't snow, but the weather sucked. And then Patrick Mahomes had the flu out of nowhere. So that thing was dead on arrival. I guess the biggest takeaway is just like we're still in this spot where I don't really know a whole lot. Like the Chiefs losing last week was a big one. And like in another way, like the Jets finding a way to win and just at least continue to like, extend their season. Yeah, that's something to be considered. Like I think the AFC is clearly just head and shoulders above the NFC. I kind of wrote about that for the opening lines analysis this week. So I guess those are kind of like the big takeaways going into, like, as you said, a really intriguing week this week.
Yeah, that Jets Giants game, I woke up on Sunday morning and hammered the under in that game and felt very good about that for the bulk of the afternoon. Anything else I did after that, I was like, well, at least I had a read on this one.
Well, there more punts than points in that game.
Yeah, which is like, it's so amazing to me that like there are teams that have backup quarterbacks who they just simply do not trust them to literally throw the football. Like that is the foundation of that position, and you have so little confidence in their ability to push the ball downfield that you resort to just handing the ball off like it's a 1940s offense for the entire game. You're not even taking a shot.
Yeah, it's like one of those things, I think, where like we're at a point in sports where everyone might be too smart, and it's just like this cautious, probably like evidence statistical backed, approach.
Don't
to
screw
just being
it up,
like,
basically.
Like, let's just not blow this thing up and have a chance to win. And like I guess that worked for the Jets, but like I don't know, there's something to be said for a little bit of a little courage.
Right. Well, and then the other part, but like the flip side of that is like we're also in a time where there's more freak athletes than ever before, and these guys that have the arm talent, if nothing else, to sling it. So like the fact that there are so many teams who don't even have a guy that they're willing to just like let's just let it rip and see what happens is kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, but I guess I would argue maybe, or at least point out that like more of the athletes are kind of going to the defensive side, and this kind of speaks to something that we've talked about for like 3 weeks now, is that the defense is catching up, or maybe it's even past the offense, and I think that's one thing where it's like, yeah, you got like Kayvon Thibodeau or the entire Jets defense, and it's like I guess maybe it's a little tougher to get aggressive when you're going up against game records on the other side of the ball like that. So I get it, I guess. I don't know. Easy for me to second guess.
But yeah, no, I would echo your sort of takeaways. Also, just obviously the 49ers, they're in a little bit of a situation here. Their bye couldn't come at a better time, and the Lions bouncing back, a nice little treat on Monday night. That was a game that I took them on the show last week. Also, ended up taking the under. So I was sitting there on Monday night, the sports equinox, if you will. Games going on left and right. Just the game to screen ratio in my house was all over the map, and I'm sitting there in a watching Raiders Lions in a 12-point game, sweating it out to get to the under. But that's what we signed up for, Mike, and here we are.
It is the cross we bear.
I did have a great text from my dad during that game, after the game. So like he was right there with me and taking the Lions and the under and that. So my dad, let's just say he's not great with technology. Also loves to do like the talk to text. Like he's not going to sit there and type. He's just going to talk into his phone. So we're going back and forth about Raiders Lions, and he tells me, he says the pick six sucked. Understandable as somebody who had the under. I said, yeah, I thought they were screwed at that point. Thank God the Raiders offense blows. He responds, give me to Waffle House sucks. So I'm like, what? I'm assuming he's talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, but the conversation ended there with, so give me to Waffle House sucks.
That's
a little something lost in translation. Maybe that's a nickname that sticks for the purposes of this show, but
I like it. Yeah,
I'm assuming he's talking about Jimmy G. In which case, I gotta concur, he did not look good on Monday night.
No, he didn't. No, did not. Again, nobody wants to hear about fantasy teams, but having Devontae Adams down by 10 going into last night and watching
just airmail balls over his head all game.
Oh, it's tough scene.
Couple off the fingers, yeah, not good. All right, want to get into week 9?
Yeah, as long as I don't have to go beat the piss out of my neighbor first, but that's neither here nor there.
Do you know your neighbor, or is it like going back to the Home Improvement connection, or is it like a Wilson situation where you've never
it's certainly not Wilson.
Him?
That's one I wish in hindsight I had done Wilson instead of Al Boylan last week, considering Richard Karn is yet to get back to us. But no, this is it's just friendly but not familiar, so it is what it is. But yeah, so I'm dealing with like the crowd noise. That's the other thing. Now I'm on the road and dealing with they're pumping in the crowd noise over here, so might have to go to a silent count pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, all right. So do you want to? We are going a little bit reverse order here, so I guess I'll let you kick it off with your 3-unit pick.
All right. Yeah, I kind of have a not to tip myself for the next however many weeks. I think the only play at this point is to put the Packers game in every one of my picks at somewhere and take the under. So I'm taking the under in Packers Rams at 39.5 as my 3-unit play. I watch the Packers closer than maybe anybody, maybe more so than a lot of people in this area. They can't get anything going offensively. I will continue to defend Jordan Love until I see a better roster around him, but their offensive line is just simply atrocious. Like, I guess the pass block numbers are okay, but going back to last week, ESPN gives them, I think they're 30th in run block win rate. It's been a musical chairs offensively, pretty much at every position other than quarterback. The receivers, I think there's talent there with Dobbs and Watson, among others, like Musgrave, the rookie tight end, Jaden Reed, but a lot of drops. It's just the growing pains that, you kind of expected to be there are there. One of the, I thought this was a good tweet from a Twitter account. I follow Packers Twitter account, or maybe this got retweeted in my timeline. It said, the Packers rebuild is the exact stage of your DIY remodel where it's still torn up. You can't see any progress. And you and your partner are pissed at each other because neither thought it'd be this hard. And one of you wants to keep it while the other wants to hire someone.
This feels very relatable given what you told
I was going to say that also hits close to home. So, so I think that's perfectly stated. Like this Packers thing is kind of, it's still a work in progress. The cap space is a mess, at least for one more year. You're dealing with, there's not a veteran receiver. You speak of Devontae Adams, like there's nothing even resembling that in that room. So it makes sense. The defense continues to be a disaster. Maybe that doesn't play well here with the under, but I do think, I The Rams running game doesn't scare me. And I think if we're in a situation where they have to kind of, throw the ball more than they want to, I think the Packers have these sort of pass rush that can get home. The Rams went in last week with a 27th ranked pass block win rate. So they've struggled to protect Matthew Stafford. And speaking of Stafford, he's banged up, dealing with a thumb injury. I guess he could play, but maybe he doesn't, and this number looks even better. And maybe he does play with a UCL injury on your throwing thumb. Seems like a major issue when your job is to grip a football for a living. So
I feel like he whacked that a couple times too, where like that.
Yeah, man,
that was apparent that it was bothering him, and then he continued to hit it in the worst spots.
One of those injuries where it's like once. Yeah, exactly. Like you just keep hitting that one spot. That's relatable as well. 4 of the last 5 Packers games, we've seen 35 points or fewer scored, including the last 3. They're 24th in EPA offense over the last 3 weeks. And then the Rams, 4 of their last 6 games, we've seen the total be 41 or under. I mean, obviously, if it gets to 41, I lose this one. But I think this has 17-14 written all over it. So.
Yeah, the Packers are a weird team. They were like first couple of weeks I think we talked about them before the season where we're like, they might be in that sort of second tier of NFC teams that if Jordan Love is somewhat legit, that like maybe they throw themselves into the playoff conversation or even win that division. And you kind of saw glimpses of it over the first couple of weeks, and then it just is sort of just it went stagnant for a little bit, and it's now just sort of trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah, the injury to David Bakhtiari pretty much railroaded their entire season. And that's kind of the reason why I'm like still not totally out on Love, because it's like it looked good, to your point, for a couple of weeks. So, I mean, the guy had 6 touchdown passes in the first 2 weeks, and now I don't even know if he has one since. So it's a disaster right now, but it's just this kind of to be expected for a team that's rebuilding. So.
All right, I'm going to take an over for mine.
Sure.
The aforementioned Battle of the Birds, this week's bird bracket special. The Seahawks traveling to Baltimore to face the Ravens, over 42.5. It's just like I understand that these two teams have very good defenses, elite defenses. In the case of Baltimore, Seattle's feels like they're sort of rounding in the form a little bit. It really could end up coming out of the trade deadline better for it as well. But I don't know, like that just feels like a low total for teams with the talent on these respective offenses. Baltimore's offense in the early going was sort of struggling a little bit, finding its way with a new offensive coordinator. I think they're starting to gain some traction now. You look back-to-back overs after 4 straight unders. And then I look at those unders versus Indy, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Tennessee. So those unders, a lot of the contribution there is coming from the ineptitude of the other offense. So I just think that not only is Baltimore's offense in a better spot now than it was a few weeks ago, I think Seattle's offense is better than any of those units. So I look at 42.5 relative to the 39.5 you were just talking about with that other game. Like that to me feels like a clear under due to just the offensive inconsistency of those two units. This number to me, I'm like, I could totally see this game devolving into a shootout where they're just sort of going back and forth, despite what we've seen from the defenses so far. The Ravens defense to me you could argue it is the number 1 defense in the NFL, certainly top 3. It's kind of amazing that they've been able to do it too, given some of the injuries they've had, some of the turnover they had, which I guess just kind of speaks to just that the program. Just every year they're sort of able to piece it together and be respectable at the very least on the defensive side. But is there going to come a point where that kind of gets tested? Seattle with their rushing attack and some of their weapons are able to do so. Ravens also been crazy good defensively in the red zone, so that's another candidate for regression, I guess. Maybe Seattle's able to turn some of these trips into touchdowns, in which case the over looks a little bit better. I don't know. To me, that was just one number that going through just immediately jumped out. As far as a side, I guess maybe I would lean Seattle with Baltimore laying 5.5, that being just a weird dead number, but I'm more focused on the total here, over 42.5.
Yeah, I actually every week I have a short list of games I'm looking at, and like the over for this game was one of them. And then I realized that was one that you had already taken. And I looked back at the message you sent me this morning, so I kind of eased away from it. But yeah, I agree. The number just felt low. I understand why it is what it is, but going back to the red zone thing, I was just looking into like kind of the numbers. Baltimore is the third ranked offense, and the Seattle defense has been terrible in the red zone. I think they're giving up, I think it was like 75%. So yeah, I like this one a lot. Again, it just, the point that you just made about like the difference between this and the Packers Rams game kind of crystallizes it for me. It's like, right? It's like, basically a field goal difference. Yeah.
That's like my thing. Like I saw that number and I'm like, that's the type of number that's reserved for, the Jets, the Giants, like matchups with teams like that. Atlanta, who we talked about multiple times, it feels like over the past few weeks, and just their inability to do anything offensively. So like, then I look at these two teams and I'm like, yeah, I understand how good their defenses are, but there's clearly offensive upside, especially in the case of Baltimore. So that just feels way too low for me. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if that goes up at all over the course of the week.
Yeah, I think there's some big play potential on both sides too, and all it takes is like one or two of those to get you a lot closer to the number.
I think that's the thing too. It's like if I was to take the under in this game, like you are sitting there holding on for dear life probably for the duration of this game. Very, very uncomfortable.
Maybe a reason to take the under is just because the uncomfortableness is probably the way to go usually, but that would be the easiest thing to do, or the difficult thing to do. So
we live our lives in discomfort. Clearly.
Yeah, that is true.
What do you got for a 2-unit pick?
So for my 2-unit play, I'm taking one of the more popular, bigger games of the week, which is probably a fool's errand, but I like the Cowboys to win outright, but I'll just take them getting the 3 at Philly this week. I think kind of looking into some of the numbers, Dallas is maybe undervalued a little bit. One thing that really caught my eye is based on DVOA. Well, I guess maybe first we'll start with Philly. They may be over valued based on DVOA. They have them at like 5.5 expected wins this season, which is 7th. Not too shabby, but certainly not near the top of the league, or at the top of the league. They have 7 wins this year, so that's a pretty stark difference. It tells you that they've been able to win games, and that's a credit to them, but it hasn't been convincing, not in the least bit. You look at the Cowboys too, they're closer to the number. And if anything, they've maybe been slightly better than their record states. So I think you're getting a little bit of value here with the Cowboys. I look at the offense, it looks like it's maybe coming alive or resurging or whatever. They had that hiccup in San Francisco, which obviously was not good, but over the last 2 weeks, Dak Prescott especially has kind of lit the world on fire, completing 46 of 61 passes, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick, 125 passer rating. That's pretty impressive. I feel like they're starting to kind of move the ball around in a way that they hadn't done in the past. You look at to that point, the offenses are similar, at least in points per game. Dallas actually is better, ranked 2nd. Philly's ranked 3rd. Dallas defense has performed much better, from a scoring aspect, 4th versus 19th. And I think too, Dak Prescott, has played pretty well against Philly, at least in the last dating back to the start of 2021. He's been injured and has kind of missed a handful of games or a few games in that run. But when he has played, the Cowboys are 3-0 outright, averaging 38 points per game. Prescott completing 78% of those passes, 11 touchdowns, 3 interceptions in those games. That's pretty impressive stuff. They've I know that comparing 2021 to 2023 is maybe a little bit foolhardy, but I don't know how good this Philly defense is. I know the talent is there, but I do think that they can get got. And you look at some other, other tiny little smaller things. Dallas is 7th and 3rd down defense, which I guess maybe seems pretty arbitrary, but I think those are the types of stats that are really important to get off the field. Philly ranks 1st in the entire NFL in time of possession. It's pretty clear what they want to do, right? It's these long sustained drives where they're keeping them alive with that stupid quarterback sneak thing. I think the Cowboys have this sort of defense that can keep them out of 3rd and 2 that becomes 4th and inches, or even gets to 3rd and 1, whatever. I think they've got a chance to force a couple punts, get off the field, and take advantage with that offense. So and even red zone offense, Dallas has struggled, but Philly ranks 26th defensively. I think the Cowboys are going to have opportunities to score, and I think they have enough talent on defense to at least keep it within the number. And like I said, I think they actually win this thing outright.
Yeah, the Eagles are like you kind of look at them one of two ways. Either you like the fact that they're able to come back in these games and like the fight that they've shown and think, okay, well, this is probably going to benefit them come playoff time. Or you look at it and you say to yourself, are they really that good if they're being forced into these situations where they've got to come back from double-digit deficits against the likes of the Commanders or whoever? Because it is pretty wild there. I don't know. I forget what the exact stat was, but like their ability to overcome these double-digit deficits in the fourth quarter is relative to the rest of the league is pretty mind-blowing. Because like you look at a team like the 49ers, for instance, who I don't know if they've really ever done it under Kyle Shanahan. Like it's just, like when they win, it's they're jumping out early, they're beating you into the ground, and then that's that.
Yep.
Philly, obviously, a much different avenue to their victories, which makes me think come playoff time, maybe they're better equipped for that style of football. But the road to getting there, there's gonna be the bumps, and maybe this is one of those weeks where they are going up against a team that is, relatively evenly matched from a talent perspective, that you can't quite survive one of those scares.
The flip side to that, though, now that I'm thinking about it, and I'm uneasy, is maybe Philly has been in neutral for 8 weeks, and this is the game that they take, I guess to mix metaphors, they take the tarp off of the Ferrari and just say, let's go. And they just completely boat race them just to prove that they're still, the team to beat in the NFC. But I think 2 months of evidence is
that
enough
to me felt like that game against Miami a couple of weeks ago. Like that, that seemed like a spot for that. And
sure.
So maybe they already got it out of their system. That's maybe what I'm saying. But yeah, that seemed like a game where, at home, prime time, going up against a team that was sort of becoming the sexy Super Bowl pick, and they just sort of, took them out back and beat the piss out of them. So, so maybe, like I said, maybe they got it out of the system. Which, speaking of which, actually, it's a good segue into my 2-unit pick. Those same Dolphins that got pummeled against the Eagles obviously bounced back last week to beat the Patriots. Now we got ourselves a nice game in Germany. This might be the most fascinating international game of all time, right? Like, it's
bold claim, but yeah,
it's hard to think of a better one from ever since the NFL's been doing this. So definitely set your alarm for this one. Chiefs laying 2.5 against the Dolphins. I'm going to take the Chiefs. A game with, potentially major ramifications for the AFC's number 1 seed. Certainly some sort of playoff seeding will probably be impacted by the result of this game. I like the Chiefs for a lot of reasons. One, favorites in general in these international games have been pretty profitable. But really, this is like the exact spot I talked about a few weeks ago with the Chiefs, where if you're able to get them as short favorites or, much less frequently as an underdog, I'm jumping all over that. This being less than a field goal. Patrick Mahomes is a favorite of 3 points or fewer or an underdog, 19-6-1 against the spread in his career. I also just love the fact that I'm getting the Chiefs coming off a loss and the Dolphins coming off a win against a clearly inferior Patriots team. That Chiefs game in Denver just didn't look right from the start. And I don't know if it is the Patrick Mahomes flu factor. I can't imagine the altitude's helping too much with that. But it just looked very, very lackadaisical from the onset. So I'm banking on a bounce back here. Chiefs have typically done well after a loss. Under Patrick Mahomes, they've covered 58% of their games following a loss. Average margin of victory of 9.7 points. After scoring 20 points or less, Chiefs are 9-3 against the spread with Mahomes in their next game. And I think there were a few things in that game against the Broncos, most notably them going 0 for 3 in the red zone. Like that should, get back to the norm a little bit, especially with Miami, 28th ranked red zone defense. So for me, this is just another instance of, I guess I'm just not totally buying in on Miami just yet, as much as maybe everybody else. I loved Buffalo in that spot when they played them a few weeks ago. Miami lost by 28. Loved Philly in that spot a few weeks ago. Miami lost by 14. So this is just another instance of me going against Miami when they're facing a superior opponent. And the fact that it's the Chiefs who typically take care of business in this spot on a neutral site makes me like it even more. So 2.5 Chiefs laying to the Dolphins in Germany. 2-unit pick.
In hindsight, the Chiefs thing, you can say this every week after you know what happened, but the Chiefs thing kind of predictable, even without the Mahomes flu thing. I guess you would think a veteran,
the travel and whatnot.
Yeah, and I get it. I guess I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth then, right? Because like the Dolphins were the same exact situation, except they were home playing against a divisional team that should know you pretty well. So maybe as I kind of talk that out, it's applying a storyline to one thing and not the other. But I do wonder, I guess it's, these are all human beings. So maybe the human beings in Kansas City didn't handle it as well as the human beings in Miami did, and they were looking ahead. But I guess you kind of have to be consistent if you're going to take that tack with one group and not apply it to the other. So forget I even said it.
Yeah, I think maybe we just put a lot of stock too into the fact that Denver has never been able to take care of business against Kansas City. So it's like it almost became like a set it and forget it at that point. I'll be honest with you, like I know that was one of your you had something in that. Would you take the over in that game?
The over, which is
so like
bad.
Aside from us discussing that, like I don't know, I didn't give much thought to that game last week. For some reason, like it just wasn't on my radar.
Yeah, I will say the Denver thing might be actually coming around. Like they're probably, not to spoil our last segment, because I know I'll probably end up having to talk about the Broncos if I keep talking about them now, is I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year, but I think you can already say there's been actual progress or improvement, which was to be expected when you hire Sean Payton for $1 billion. But
it's crazy though, because like their lows have been incredibly low. So like that makes the totality of it, I think, seem worse than it actually is. Because like you look at it and you're like, well, I guess by and large better than last year, right? But like it's hard when you get smoked by 50 in a game and all of a sudden all of your players are involved in trade rumors and the like. It's like it just kind of feels like the wheels are coming off, and then they go ahead and they beat the defending Super Bowl champions. So
which is why I think that Hackett thing might have been calculated, where it's like, let's really remind everybody that this is an absolute dumpster fire. So if we win 5 games this year, it's going to look like significant progress.
All right, let's move on to 1 unit.
So in the past, I've been able to kind of change on the fly. And luckily, this product has evolved over the years to where we have these fancy graphics and we have to turn in these graphics beforehand, so I can't change my pick on the fly. So I'm pot committed to using my 1 unit play on the Vikings as 4.5 point road underdogs at Atlanta, despite the fact that they're starting Jaron Hall, a fellow whose name I was not familiar with, going into last week.
This was one of those games where when the backup comes in, you start messing around on Google and you're asking Jeeves, who's the backup of the Vikings? Like,
yeah, you're like, what happened to Nick Mullins?
He's still there, right?
Yeah, but he's on IR, I think. Yeah, so like, oh well, I can't find Nick Mullins. That's how bad it is. You're like, is Christian Ponder available still?
Yeah, like, what happened to Kellen Mond?
Jeff George
Chris Sims told me was like the best quarterback in that draft or something.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I look at the. This is gonna be a tough sell. The Minnesota defense, I think, is what I'm really kind of focused on here. Brian Flores has done a hell of a job. I mean, the defense, assuming they don't. I mean, this is the other thing too. Like, their season's over now that Kirk Cousins is out for the year. It's possible by the time that this video goes live to YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, like they've traded Daniel Hunter, like the rest of that defense, and this thing will be dead in the water. But assuming they don't sell off half their defense, I think their defense has been, very, very effective this year. They're a top 10 unit pretty much by all metrics across the board. I think this is a very favorable matchup in that regard. I think Arthur Smith, like, his job has to be in jeopardy, right? I just don't see And I do think there are some roster construction issues with what the Falcons have done, but there's no denying the talent. And maybe it's all a quarterback issue. And maybe maybe Tyler Heineke goes in. Tyler Taylor. It's just been so long since Heineke has been on the field, but maybe he goes in and it looks a lot better. Ritter got benched because he stinks. Like it's just a mess offensively for the Falcons, despite the fact that Arthur Smith was supposed to be some offensive guru. So that's just, I keep going back to that. I just don't see how they're going to score a ton of points here. I also look at the fact that, despite the fact that Jaren Hall is going to start probably a quarterback for the Vikings, I think they're going to put him in a spot where he doesn't need to do a lot. Obviously, I think that's obviously the game plan for any rookie quarterback making his first career start, especially on, relatively short notice. They're going into last week 6th in pass block, 17th in run block. So like the offensive line has performed pretty well in front of right, the quarterback, in front of Kirk Cousins. So I'm trying to play it out in my head depending on where you're looking from. But anyway,
if they're not in front of it, that becomes an issue.
Yeah, exactly. So they've done a pretty good job of staying in front of him this year, I guess. The way to put it. I think I trust Kevin O'Connell. Like, it's not going to be pretty, but 4.5 feels like too many for a pretty well coached team with veterans, some skill position players, even without Justin Jefferson across the field on both sides of the ball. It's not going to be pretty, but I think the Vikings, even if they lose this game, can do it in like 16-13. 20-17 fashion. So I'll grab those 4.5 points while I can still get them and just hope they don't trade off the entire team.
So it's interesting. I was almost on the other side of this for one of my picks. Almost laid the 4.5 with Atlanta for really being just like the natural inclination. You have quarterback making his first NFL start, like plenty of numbers to support that. It's been a dumpster fire in a lot of cases. And like, sure, like maybe he comes out, maybe they get blanked. Like maybe they don't score at all. But then the other part of me is like thinking like, do I really want to lay 4.5 with the Falcons? Like, this is a team that kind of always finds a way to, it turns into it just devolves into a field goal game for one reason or another, because Desmond Ridder fumbles it out of the back of the end zone for a touchback or something. A guy who they're like oddly committed to. Like, I don't know who's going to end up starting at quarterback. Should be Heineke, but like they're just oddly committed to him, and it never looks right. Like, I don't know. So that it just scared me away, because again, at first glance, I'm like, yeah, I'll lay the 4.5. And then I'm like, oh wait, it's the Falcons.
We're so dumb for doing this in the middle of trade deadline day. As we've been talking, the Cardinals traded Josh Dobbs to the Vikings.
So is he?
So I don't think he's going to play. I can't imagine he's going to play. I think this is more of a long-term play, but maybe that speaks to the confidence that the Vikings have that they can still beat the Falcons this week and then get Dobbs downloaded for next week. So I thought that was just
the more interesting side of that, obviously, is that I assume Kyler Murray is now going to play.
That's a much better takeaway, but I just thought it was interesting that we're in the middle of the conversation. They're wheeling and dealing quarterback.
So it's a good thing that neither one of us decided to pay much mind to the Cardinals this week. Otherwise, this would have just completely derailed the entire show.
Yeah, it would.
But it is interesting. Like the Cardinals, who I'll probably pick out of this pumpkin in a minute, like just what that means for them. They've been kind of a scrappy team at times, and then another time where they show their true colors. And I know we just in general like talking about birds on this show, so it's interesting.
Is this a good thing or a bad thing for Josh Dobbs? It's like, thanks, dude, for like playing pretty well, getting your ass whooped at other times, and now. But I guess they're basically sending him there to be. He's got a better chance of starting in Minnesota for the rest of the year than he does in Arizona. So yeah, I guess it's good by him.
Even if he doesn't start this week, I would imagine like he has every opportunity to seize that job, and you're going to a team that theoretically is in playoff contention. So like he could end up making some money out of this, to be honest with you, if he strings together a few good weeks here.
Yeah, like unless Hall's great, he'll play. So.
All right, my 1 unit pick. I am not going to waste much time on this.
Good idea.
because I think you already know what it is. I'm going to take the Bears. I'm just going to hold my nose and take the Bears, which is always a dicey proposition. They're getting 7.5 points in New Orleans against the Saints. This pick, for me, says more about the Saints than it does the Bears. I just cannot. It's just a number that I can't do it. I can't lay 7.5 with the Saints. The inconsistency is too much for me. This actually opened, I believe, at 5.5, so jumped already past the key number up to 7.5, presumably with Justin Fields being ruled out. 1 week after fading Tyson Bagent, I'm now jumping back in here and backing the Bears. But Saints 1-5-1 against the spread as a favorite this season, 0-3 against the spread at home. I think historically, like over the past few years, just been overvalued at home in general. So I mean, maybe the Bears offense struggles from the get-go and never gets right, but I do think there's an opportunity to maybe run on the Saints here. Saints did just give up their most net rushing yards this season. A couple of runs of over 40 yards. So I'm not quite sure how the Bears get there to get within the number. But the Saints offensive inconsistency, I just can't lay the 7.5, especially in a game with a total of 41. This is going to be one of those ugly games, in which case the number just looks very, very inflated to me.
Bears are going for it.
Yeah.
They just want to trade Montez Sweat. So, yeah. There you go. That's all. I did not pay attention to a ton of your. Take
There's
the Bears.
Not a lot to sink your teeth into there. It's just a game that does not look. It's not. Look, it doesn't pass the eye test for us. Not aesthetically pleasing by any means. And
I will say though, I've got a developing strategy. Is that just to like lay the points with? Well, this doesn't really fit. Lay the when the spread's like a touchdown or more, just lay the points because the separation between the haves and the have-nots is so big right now in the NFL. But I guess to your point, like,
but are the Saints the haves?
The Saints are, yeah, right.
Like
they're not. So, I mean, This is a
game that they clearly. I mean, that their defense is good. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in theory, like, they should be able to just shut down this Bears offense, get in, get out with a win. At the same time, it's like once you get up over that touchdown, like, I don't know whether maybe Chicago sneaks in the back door, or maybe they, like I said, they do enough on the ground here to just keep this in like the high teens type of area. Because that's the thing too. Like, I look at the total 41. Like, it tells me we're looking at high teens. Whatever team gets to 21 here, and in which case makes 7.5 look a whole lot bigger.
Yeah. I mean, the Chargers, who I think are much better than the Saints, or at least have a higher ceiling, being 8.5 point favorites last week. I know the Saints have a slightly bigger home field advantage than the Chargers do, but that's doesn't totally add up.
I mean, look, it might take a little awkwardness. Like, this could be similar to last week when the Cardinals managed to cover against the Ravens by kicking that field goal at the end, down by 10 points.
Yeah,
like you might need some tomfoolery to get within the number. I don't know the direct path, the direct avenue to getting there, but I see the 7.5 with the Saints. And regardless of the opponent, I'm like, I can't do it. Just can't get there.
I'd forgotten all about that one. Thanks for bringing that up. I was checking the scores earlier. I was like, wait, how did they not cover? So,
which is like exactly what I said when in our picks column, which you can read every Thursday on NESN.com. Also got a NESNBets.com. Check out all the live odds, which could be impacted by the NFL trade deadline. Who the hell knows? But yeah, I basically was like, I don't know how they're gonna get there, but I didn't quite envision that being the path, but. Whatever gets it done, I guess. So that's it, right? There we go. I mean,
walk me through this this last thing you got.
So usually, we do our show and tell. We open some football cards. Last week we had a whole bunch of Halloween themed questions, I guess, and just, I mean, you looked around the set and there was just ghosts and goblins and scarecrows and bats and spiders and witches and pumpkins and all the like. This week like I said, we're kind of putting an end to our Halloween festivities. But one thing we never got to last week was we have this pumpkin, which has all 32 teams in it, in addition to a Three Musketeers, a Snickers, a Milky Way, and Whoppers that I just happened to throw in there on the way into the studio. But basically, we were just going to pick out each of us one team, and we were going to have to place a Super Bowl futures bet on them for the rest of the season. This is our version of trick-or-treating. Like, you just got to, you reach your hand into the bowl, you pull it out, and you live with the results. And then obviously we can talk about how we got the short end of the stick or whatever, but it's luck of the draw. That's all. It's all really. It's kind of like the football guys. It's luck of the draw.
I think we'll be making real money wagers on these as well.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, we got to put our money where our mouth is sometimes.
So it'll be fun to revisit, hopefully in a couple months if we're doing well.
So what makes this difficult is you. There you go. Nice shot of the pumpkin. Again, just should probably hit the dentist chair. But yeah, so it is difficult that I'm gonna have to make your pick, I guess.
That's all right.
But I'm a man of integrity, so you can.
I know.
You know that.
I trust.
It's probably for the best. I know you got some sickness going around the house. We don't need your grubby paws getting into this and contaminating everybody's Halloween candy. So, so the first one I pick out, should it be me or you? Should it be for me or for you? I'll let you.
For you.
Okay. This will be my. Also, one other rules and regulation aspect of this. Do we want to do you get one mulligan? So if you you pick your team.
Yeah.
If you like it, you can basically you decide whether you want to go for it on fourth down or kick the field goal. You're kicking or sticking. So like if you pull it out, it's a mediocre team. You say, I think I could do better, but obviously you run the risk of getting a worse team. So one mulligan.
Trick or treat within trick or treat.
Yeah. Got to give us one out, right? One cash out.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. Yep.
So here we go.
This is you.
This is me. All right, I only got one here. Should probably pull up the odds too, huh?
I got him, yeah.
Oh. Woo. We got the Buffalo Bills.
There you go. 12-1 at FanDuel Sportsbook right now.
12-1. That's a team right now that we didn't even talk about that game, but that's a very good Sunday night game. Them traveling to Cincinnati, playing the Bengals, two teams kind of going in opposite directions, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like the Bills having an abundance of injuries on the defensive side. Bengals, we'll probably talk about this next week. I figure we'll do some midseason stuff, but like a Joe Burrow MVP, bet that we were talking about a few weeks ago doesn't sound as crazy. That team's coming on strong. So, anyways, Bills. What was it? What'd you say it was? What was the number at?
12-1.
12-1.
If I could, real quick, I think I have a theory. This is an interesting game. I think the Bengals are playing well. I think the Bengals are gonna have momentum. I think it's a weird spot for Buffalo because they have to. It's going back to Cincinnati for the first time since the Damar Hamlin thing, right? That was in Cincinnati. I'm not making that up.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a little bit of distraction there. The Bengals, like I said, are playing well. I mean, maybe I'm going to pull up the Bengals right now, but the Bengals are 17-1 to win the Super Bowl. The Bills, obviously, 12-1. I think you might get screwed here because I think I'm leaning toward the Bengals winning this. I'm leaning toward the Bengals winning this game. And if they win that game, the Bills number is going to probably come off 12, and the Bengals number is going to get worse than 17. So I think if you're looking at it really, really long term, this is maybe the last week to really get some value on the Bengals at 17-1. Where if like they beat the Bills on Sunday night in front of a national audience, that number is probably going to shrink to a point where you're going to lose the value that you still kind of have at 17. Whereas like the Bills, if you want to bet the Bills to win the Super Bowl, like if they lose this game with like a weird, just come in a weird spot, they're probably going to be 14 or 15 on Monday morning. I don't know how that changes. So it's just something to keep in mind. That doesn't do you a whole lot of good, but you're feeling pretty good holding that 12-1 ticket either way.
Yeah, I'll take that. But no, that's a good point about Cincinnati because like, they win this game. They're sitting at 5-3.
And like
with like legitimate wins, legitimate back-to-back wins over Super Bowl contenders. Joe Burrow, assuming, the path to victory is him looking like Joe Burrow. So like, you're suddenly feeling pretty good about that team. But then, I mean, who knows? They come out, they get smoked, and
right. I just think with them though, like they don't need to win the division. Like they've proved time and time again that they can go anywhere in January and win. So they're feisty.
All right, let's see what you got.
All right, pick me out. Pick me out a winner, Bobby.
I got you. All right. Mike's Super Bowl team is. Ooh, you might be looking for a mulligan on this one. Chicago Bears.
So, I mean, I just said they're going for it.
Yes.
You know what, Ricky? I am going to. I'm going to probably pick again, considering there's not a single team in the entire NFL that has a longer number.
I guess it's a little mathematically, I don't even know if it would work. So.
It's them and the Cardinals at 1,000 to 1. Which kind of has like Kevin Malone from The Office vibes. If you're ever given like 10,000 to 1 odds, you take them. But I'm gonna pass and try for another one here.
All right. Hopefully, I can do you better here.
I mean, you can't do any worse.
That's true. Only one way to go. Oh, I tell you what, that's why we do it live. Bengals, baby.
Oh, there we go.
We got the Bengals.
Kind of ruins the entire ruins the rest of the segment, considering we've already shot those bullets.
This is true, yeah, and also, like you said, this is good for you. This is good for you, because like you said, the value could diminish if they win this week. So this is your last opportunity to get them to 17 to 1. You said,
yeah.
So these are two good AFC teams that we came away with here. I'm feeling pretty good about this exercise, and I'm feeling pretty good that you and I might be. I'm going to save these pieces of paper so we can bring them to our AFC Championship episode.
Yeah, when they're playing each other, that's going to be great. Yeah,
exactly. And then maybe we'll negotiate a little something and see if somebody wants to hedge and whatnot. So
do you feel better? Let's just kind of extend the conversation for 2 more minutes and we'll get out of here. I know we're wasting other people's time, but
sure.
Josh Allen is 14 to 1 to win MVP. Joe Burrow 22 to 1. Would you rather make either of those bets or just let it ride with the Super Bowls? And I think you probably obviously have more outs at the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, I would. The
number's a little bit better, but I don't think it's, for me, 17 versus 22.
I was going to say the discrepancy between the two respective
yours
numbers
is even worse.
Yeah. 12 and 14. It's like I'll stick with the 12, and like you said, just bank on the number of outs I have there. Because that's the thing. It's like a lot needs that. Like I mentioned, like that Joe Burrow like MVP pick is it doesn't look terrible, but it's also a lot needs to happen for him to still get there. Like it doesn't look terrible relative to where he was sitting in week 2 or week 3, but still like. You're banking on other guys falling apart in addition to that guy elevating his game even more. So, and to your point about the Bengals, like, just get in, right?
Yeah.
And the same with Buffalo, I guess. Like, even if Miami ends up winning that division, like, Buffalo gets in, next thing you know, they could be in the AFC Championship. So.
I agree. I like that. That was a good exercise.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out well. A little bummed you didn't stick with the Bears, but, it is what it is.
Yeah,
you exercised your right to a mulligan.
I was ready to take like a nice, 50, 40 to 1, but I can't do 1,000. I'm sorry. Not with the Bears.
I mean, I'm sure every analytic in the book was in your favor there over sticking with the Bears or going elsewhere. So
yeah, I might still put one down on a couple bucks on the Bears just for the story.
There you go. All right, Mike, let's get out of here.
Yep. Thank you for your cooperation, Ricky. I appreciate it.
Sure. I hope you have a happy Halloween. Do people say
no?
Do people say happy Halloween like when you're out at the? Because I got my haircut last week and somebody came in and said to one of the barbers, "Happy Halloween." And I don't know. I was kind of taken aback by that, but
maybe it's bigger in some circles than others. Maybe I don't know. Big day for barbers. I don't know. All
right. Well, happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
We'll do it again next week. Like I said, probably talk some midseason stuff, but who knows? A lot could happen between now and then. And also we'll have a trade deadline fallout. So that should.
Oh, that's true. Yep.
Anyways, all right. This was The Spread, NESN's Football Picks podcast. As mentioned earlier, you can check out our full picks on Thursday on NESN.com. Also, check out NESNBets.com for live odds and the such. I'm Ricky Doyle. That's Mike Cole. We had a blast. Now we're going to go trick-or-treating. Have a good day, everyone.